We've got the draw. Arsenal versus Crystal Palace in the quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup. It's actually a repeat of last year's quarterfinal. Arsenal won 3-1. I'll just talk about that game in a bit of detail. Cardiff host Chelsea, Man City host Brentford, and Newcastle host Fulham. Now, I don't want to... Look, it's cup football. Anything can happen. We just saw Palace win 3-0 at Liverpool. Man United were knocked out to Grimsby. Anything can happen. But there's a very real chance of an Arsenal, Chelsea, Man City, Newcastle set of semi-finals. Now, there's also a very real chance of us sort of repeating a little bit of last year's run, because it could be Newcastle in the semis. But anyway, we'll get to that. Let's just get through, see where we're left. Obviously, that's no disrespect to Cardiff, to Fulham, to Palace, and I can't remember who the last team is. Because, anything can kind of happen, right, in football. But we've avoided a big clash amongst those four I mentioned, really, like a Chelsea, Man City, Arsenal, Newcastle facing each other. What we've also avoided, Chelsea are away to Cardiff, but Newcastle, City and Arsenal all at home as well, which will be somewhat favourable ties too for them. There will be, if we were going to Selhurst Park, or Man City were going to Brentford, or Newcastle were going to Fulham, I'd actually say, when you're rotating, when it's that late in the competition, the other team are really wanting it, they're sensing a chance of a semi-final, I sort of say it hangs in the balance. If Arsenal, City and Newcastle were the away teams to Palace, Fulham and Brentford, I'd be saying, you know what, there's every chance that those other sides go through. Palace are very good. All three of them are very good. Some of the wins Brentford have had this season. Fulham, Craven Cottage, look how much we struggled the other day, and Palace have been on a terrific run. So, and the FA Cup holders. The fact that those are home ties makes it a touch more favourable for the bigger clubs. But there's going to be so much to see. Those games are being played around the 13th, I think, or 15th of December. So where are Arsenal a month and a half, further into a title race? Where, what does the squad look like? How many players have we got back? You'd hope Havertz, Madueke, Ødegaard are back. Maybe Jesus, might be a bit too soon for him. But, what could that 11 potentially look like? And if things start to go a little bit wrong in the title race, we don't have a grasp of top spot at that point, then there's more pressure on this game as well. So it's a little bit more in the distance. Arsenal play essentially, the way this competition works, you're playing your first round, if you're in that upper bracket of Premier League clubs, you're playing your first round in September, you're playing your next round in October, the round after that in December, and then a January before March final, January semis and March final. So, yeah, it's a bit of a strange competition. That's only kind of really 5 rounds, 6 games in that if you make it all the way. Now, okay, it's Palace at home. I was at the Palace game on the weekend and we struggled against them. It was a really, really difficult team to break down. I don't know how they will be with a little bit of rotation, because they did rotate a little bit for this game against Liverpool, but I think they'll go quite strong. Glasner has spoken about winning trophies when they won the FA Cup. I think even before that, he said, we want to compete. And that's kind of the mentality he instills in the club. They've lifted a Community Shield and an FA Cup. So I actually think this is a really awkward tie for us, because they're better than they were a year ago when we played them. I think that was still Oliver Glasner, wasn't it? But they're better now. And I think they are a side who, naturally with the 5-4-1, can be difficult to break down. But also, when you look at the way Brighton nearly picked us off a few times tonight, I think a team like Palace, with the way their wing-backs get forward, have a little bit more joy against us. I'm actually a little bit worried about this particular game. I think, bar not wanting any sort of away games, wanting to avoid Chelsea, Newcastle, City, all that, I sort of think Palace, either home or away, was kind of like right up there for the kind of games I would have wanted to have avoided. I'm hoping, obviously, that we can rest, rotate, manage the squad quite well to a point where, come that game, we're able to field an 11 like, I'm just going to say this off the top of my head, Kepa in goal. Yeah, probably a similar white, like a white Saliba, Hincapié, Lewis-Skelly would be good, right? Something like that. Or a Mosquera and Gabriel, something like that. With a Norgard, or like a Zubamendi and a Marino, or a Norgard and a Rice. Ødegaard playing because he won't have played that much, so it'd be good to see Ødegaard in the team with a Trossard, Madueke and Havertz. So you give me, or Martinelli on there, if you give me something like that, I don't think Arsenal got a good chance of going through. But you never know what more injuries we'll have between now and that period of time as well. So let's see. And you don't know what's going to happen with Palace. You don't know if they're going to be with that same momentum that they've had sort of in the last sort of couple months. You know, will there be a dip there? I don't know. They lost at home to Larnaca. I think that's their name. They lost to them, didn't they? When was that? Last week, Thursday. So in the Conference League. So you never know. You don't know what form they're going to be in. We beat them 3-1 last year. We went 1-0 down. And Gabby Jesus scored a hat-trick, I think. Some brilliant goals in there as well. And then later that week, we ended up beating them 5-1 at Selhurst. So we've actually got a decent run of results against Palace. Although when they came to the Emirates earlier in the season, they drew 2-2. Eze scored a really good goal. I think Mateta equalised with a lovely chip. That was in and around the Champions League games, wasn't it? And then, you know, like I said, they came last year. We did beat them 3-1 in what was a game where Arsenal, there's kind of immense pressure to do something in that game because things were looking really poor in the title race. We weren't looking sharp. We'd had injuries. We'd fallen behind Liverpool, quite considerably behind Liverpool. And then we were 1-0 down in this game against Palace. I'm thinking, come on, you've got to get yourself to a cup semi-final here. You've just got to do it. And they managed to do that. I mean, interestingly, you know, if we do find another way through and make it to the semis again, who would you want? Would you want a repeat of Newcastle? Would you want revenge? I mean, it's another trip to St James's Park if that happens. Would you want, I don't know, Chelsea, bit in different form. City have had some blips, but you know, they're brilliant. Look, I don't know. It could be a really, really, really interesting. It could be, I don't know, it could be a really interesting, I don't know, a couple months in the lead up to that game, and then sort of seeing if we do make it through, who we have in the semis. Because I think it could be a really strong set of semi-finals, whether Arsenal are there or not. Last thing to touch on quickly is that Liverpool lost again. They lost 3-0 at home to Palace, and this is a side in mega crisis. Now look, their 11 was so rotated, but they're in, and I say mega crisis, I don't say that loosely. I think when you lose 6 out of 7 games from a position of spending £400 million, signing the most expensive 10 in world football, the most expensive striker in world football, you're adding that to a title winning squad, and they've had some injuries. They haven't had a plethora, a mountain of injuries in any way, shape or form, and for the results to drop that drastically, it is really strange. It's just a reminder of how much things can change in football. Well, Arsenal are in a good place now, and we're absolutely enjoying the fact that they are. Yeah, things can change really, really quickly in the game. So I hope Arsenal keep up this momentum. I'd love us to book a place in the Carabao Cup semi-final, but it won't be easy. But I think when you've got a home tie, there's sort of something you can sort of hold on to there. So let's see. Port Vale, Brighton, now Palace. Who knows what a semi or a final would look like if we get there. All right, everyone, hope you enjoyed this. If you want my match reaction to the Brighton game, that is out on the Goonerverse News now. And there'll be a player ratings live tomorrow on the Goonerverse, so look out for that. All right, big thanks, everyone. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't yet. It means you get kept up to date with everything we're doing here on the channel. Like the video if you did enjoy the video, and I'll see you very soon.